Hello, good evening. I hope you've had a wonderful Wednesday or whenever you find this. So, we're going to be getting back into Real Alchemy, a primer of practical alchemy by Robert Allen Bartlett. And we're getting into chapters 6 and 7. And chapter 6 is titled Herbal Alchemy. So, let me get some glasses on and we'll dig right in. Okay. Herbal alchemy. Boop. Oh, and let's flip this. Okay. It's kind of in a shadow. Armpit. Oh, balls. It's okay. Mother of pearls. There we go. Yeah? All right. So, herbal alchemy. Now we come to the point of actually applying these processes to prepare various spagyric and alchemical products. We describe the preparation of the 7 basics as a prelude or first step on the alchemical path. There are many different ways to obtain the 3 essentials and many preparations for use along the alchemical path, each with unique medicinal and initiatory powers. We have talked about tinctures and elixirs. Now we are going to explore several others with colorful names and surprisingly powerful effects. The magisteries, Magisteries, the magisteries, magistries. The process for producing the so-called magistry of a plant has several variations. This one comes to us from Paracelsus. It is fairly simple and requires only a distillation setup, some fresh herb, and a little 190 proof alcohol. We can produce 7 magistries from different plants, each ruled by one of the planets, just as we did for the 7 basics. The process requires a series of digestion and distillations which volatilize the 3 essentials, followed by a final circulation. Here is the method. Hey, Delaney, welcome in. Take a fresh plant and chop it up a bit. Put it into a container and pour your alcohol over it until the herb is covered. This should be rectified spirit of wine, but any strong and potable alcohol will work. Seal it, then let it digest at about 40 degrees Celsius for 1 month. Then take the matter and gently distill it in a water bath until it is dry. Be careful not to burn it. Pour this distillate, which now contains the liquid of the plant as well as the alcohol you started with. It says, so pour this distillate over some fresh herb and again digest at 40 degrees Celsius for a month. Distill the whole again and collect the distillate, which will have increased in volume again. Repeat this process of digesting fresh herb in the distillate for a month and distilling until the volume is 5 times the original volume of alcohol used. If we used 100 milliliter alcohol to start, we will end up with 500 milliliters total at the end. Circulate this final distillate for 1 month, after which time the magistry will collect as oily-looking drops and either sink to the bottom or float on top, depending on the herb's nature. Collect this with a dropper into a small vial and keep it sealed well. Paracelsus says one part of this magistry has the same effect as 200 times the quantity of the corresponding dried plant, so a half of an ounce equals 100 ounces. The ENS, E-N-S. In his work entitled Paramirim, Paracelsus describes 5 powers which form the root causes of disease in man. These powers, which he terms ENS or entia in the plural, are subtle influences, spiritual, yet involved in physical causation. The so-called ENS tinctures are held to be effective at these subtle levels and considered by many to be among the most powerful spagyric medicines which can be used to correct our own imbalances, bringing us to a state of physical and spiritual health in a much more powerful way than the 7 basics. One modern operator writes, quote, "The ENS manifests the highest initiatic virtue of the plant it is made from. Since alchemy has no set rituals, no lodges, or methods of advancements other than the work itself, all initiation is said to be interior in this form of esotericism. We initiate ourselves into the work, and the work initiates us to higher and deeper levels of awareness. The nature of spagyric tinctures, and in particular the ENS, is to clear out the blocks in our psychic makeup and anatomy, similar to what is called nadis in yoga or the meridians in acupuncture. This subtle anatomy allows for the exchange of information between the dense physical world of matter and the subtler psychic world, of which it is an extension." End quote. Mark Stavish, Practical Plant Alchemy, 1998. Dang, that was good. The simplest ENS tinctures are prepared from herbs, and like our 7 basics or magistries, one can be made for each of the 7 planetary rulers for each day of the week. The preparation of the ENS tincture is only a bit more complicated than our simple spagyric elixirs, and yet their effect is held to be comparable to an elixir which has greater maturity and potency. The simple skills we learn from this experiment will serve us in future works upon the mineral kingdom or the mineral realm. There are a number of methods suggested for preparing an ENS tincture. The following method is perhaps the most common. It derives from the works of Paracelsus and specifically from a commentary on his life and works by Franz Hartmann. Preparing the ENS tincture. The same materials are used as previously described for making the 7 basics. The alcohol must be very strong, not less than 95%. In addition, 1 or 2 pounds of potassium. Oh, there's a big old space between it, and it's the same sentence. In addition, 1 or 2 pounds of potassium carbonate will be needed, and a wide glass dish like those used for baking. Potassium carbonate can be purchased from a chemical supply shop, or you can also find it at a ceramic supply, often under the name of pearl ash, for substantially less cost. In the old days, potassium carbonate was known as the salt of tartar. If you like, you can collect potassium carbonate the old way by leaching it from wood ashes, especially oak wood, grapevine, and fern ash. This will give you something to do with all those ashes you clean out of your fireplace or wood stove. Just scoop them out and place them into a large plastic bucket. Pour clean water over them. Tap water is fine. Stir and let settle. Pour off the clear liquid from the top. Filter and evaporate the water. Be careful, because it is quite caustic and can burn the skin and seriously injure your eyes. It is like lye. In fact, it is lye. And they used to make soap this way. After the water evaporates, you will have a crystalline mass that is more or less white. You can set this in your broiler for a while to get it white. Let this crystalline material sit outside, protected from dust and rain, late in the evening till early morning, several nights in a row, and you will see that a large part of it will have turned into liquid by absorbing the moisture from the air. This is called deliquescence. Collect all of this liquid you can and evaporate the water from it in a clean dish. This will give you a crude potassium carbonate. You can calcine this, dissolve it in water, then recrystallize it several times to make it pure. This takes quite a bit of time and patience, but it is free, and the end product can be used over and over again. Over time, you can gather a fairly large amount of material, which can be used for a number of different alchemical works, and, in addition, gain some valuable experience in the manipulation of salts. Spread the potassium carbonate in a thin layer inside a glass dish, no more than 1/4 of an inch thick. Again, care should be taken to avoid exposure to the potassium carbonate in either its dry or liquefied state. Be sure to wash your hands thoroughly after handling to avoid any contamination, especially of your eyes, which can be seriously damaged. The potassium carbonate is strong enough to etch the sides of the glass container used during this experiment, so do not use anything you value. It will likely be destroyed. Place the dish in an area where it will be exposed to the night air. So wait, when something etches away at something like that, like it etches away at glass, it's like taking away some of the glass, it's making it less mass. So where does it go? Is it dissolved? I mean, like, does then the liquid, the potassium carbonate, like, have glass in it now? That's like, I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that. Maybe I sound like an idiot. I'm not sure. As the potassium carbonate, it will likely be destroyed. Place the dish in an area where it will be exposed to the night air. As the potassium carbonate liquefies or becomes deliquescent, it absorbs the moisture carried in the air. This moisture is said to be the vehicle of a universal fire or vital force, which is most easily obtained in the spring and early summer months. We'll have much more to say about this later. Draw off the liquid as it accumulates into a clean container. This liquid is called the oil of tartar per deliquium. Oil of tartar per deliquium. When several ounces of liquid have been collected, you can begin the extraction procedure. It is best to filter the liquid through a ball of cotton or glass wool prior to use. Paper filters absorb a lot of the liquid and tend to fall apart due to the corrosive nature of the fluid. Place about 2 ounces of finely ground herb in a clean, dry jar and pour in the clean fluid you have collected and filtered. Beginning this operation when the planet ruling the herb is in a powerful position will assist you in your work. Pour in enough fluid to cover the top of the herb until it becomes a fully liquefied mass. Also allow space for thorough shaking and seal with a tight plastic lid. Digest for a week or two with periodic shaking. The liquid will become darkly colored during this time. Carefully squeeze the mixture through a nylon stocking and place the liquid into a clean vessel. Remember to use gloves and eye protection for this. Now pour in an equal amount of strong alcohol, at least 95%, and shake daily to ensure the two liquids mix, as the lighter alcohol will float on top. If the two liquids do not separate, it means there was too much water in the herb or the alcohol. Slowly add solid dry potassium carbonate to absorb the excess water. If separation does not occur, you will have to start again. The alcohol extract floating on top will be the ENS tincture that will be removed after the digestion. The alcohol will become darkly tinted after a few days. After about 2 weeks or longer, you can carefully draw off the alcohol tincture from the top of the oil of tartar or herb layer. Allow it to stand for a day or two, then filter for use. Excuse me. It is helpful to let it stand in a freezer during this time, so that any water containing dissolved potassium carbonate will tend to crystallize out more easily. You will want to get the best separation of the two liquids as possible. Remember to save the oil of tartar for future use. It can be dried, calcined, and used again. In general, 5 to 10 drops of N's tincture is taken in a glass of wine or water on the day ruled by the planet of the herb. It will have an effect on the subtle or astral body of the user, as well as enhanced medicinal qualities of the particular plant. Take note of both physical effects and how it affects your habitual thought and emotional patterns. Bam! The Primum ens melissa. Perhaps the most well-known ens extract is the Primum ens melissa. Paracelsus mentions the herb melissa with high praise and says it is loaded with an easily obtained quintessence of great rejuvenating value. Franz Hartmann mentions an often quoted case of its use by Lesabure, a physician of Louis XIV of France. Yeah, I think. Who gives in his Guide to Chemistry, written about 1685, an account of some experiments witnessed by him. Quote, "One of my most intimate friends prepared the primum ens melissa, or melissae, and his curiosity would not allow him to rest until he had seen with his own eyes the effect of this arcanum, so that he might be certain whether or not the accounts given of its virtues were true. He therefore made the experiment, first upon himself, then upon an old female servant, aged 70 years, and afterwards upon an old hen that was kept at his house. First he took, every morning at sunrise, a glass of white wine that was tinctured with this remedy, and after using it for 14 days, his finger and toenails began to fall out, without, however, causing any pain. He was not courageous enough to continue the experiment, but gave the same remedy to the old female servant. She took it every morning for about 10 days, when she began to menstruate again, as in former days. At this she was very much surprised, because she did not know that she had been taking a medicine. She became frightened and refused to continue the experiment. My friend took, therefore, some grain, soaked it in that wine, and gave it to the old hen to eat. And on the 6th day, that bird began to lose its feathers, and kept on losing them until it was perfectly nude. But before 2 weeks had passed away, new feathers grew, which were much more beautifully colored. Her comb stood up again, and she began to lay eggs." Wow. Oh my gosh. The vegetable stone. The preparation of the vegetable stone has been called the opus minor, the little work or lesser circulation in comparison to the magnus opus, the great work of the philosopher's stone. In the creation of a stone in the vegetable kingdom, we seek to balance the elements of an herb in their most exalted form, which represents their true quintessence of the plant. The effects of the stone are quite powerful, both at the physical level and at the energetic level. Like the N's tinctures, the vegetable stone is held to possess an initiatic virtue that can bring an awareness of nature's operations by opening the subtle energy flow between our interior stars. They also represent a sort of merit badge, marking the process of the alchemist's mastery over the vegetable realm and his own lower nature. Creating an herbal stone takes some time. It could easily take a year or longer, and if you do not start with enough material, you end up with only a small amount. Plan to use 10 to 50 pounds of herb, depending on which herb you choose. Wow. Prefer plants where you can easily collect a good quantity of essential oils and that provide ample amounts of salts after calcination. The method we are going to examine provides the basic operations common to many of the ways of making a stone. There are many variations possible, and the actual process that you will use will be uniquely yours. You may be called the little work, It may be called the little work, but it does take some work, and this method is most often successful. The first part of this work is the separation and purification of your 3 essentials. Ideally, you would steam distill out your essential oil, then ferment the plant and distill out the alcohol, followed by multiple redistillations to obtain a very pure product. The remaining plant residue is calcined and the salts obtained by leaching. This will give you the salt of salt. The liquid remaining from the fermentation and removal of the alcohol is evaporated and calcined also. This will provide the salt of sulfur, which can be obtained by leaching the calcined residue, as we mentioned earlier. All right, so I'm just going to look up this calcined word since it's all over the place, and I don't know if I'm saying it right, and I'm feeling insecure about it.
Calcined.
Calcined. So I am saying it incorrectly. Calcined, reduced, oxidized, or desiccated by roasting or exposing to strong heat. Calcined. Oops.
Calcined.
Okay, thank you. And we're like halfway through. Hey, at least we looked. At least I looked. Calcined. Okay, so this will provide the salt of sulfur, which can also be obtained by leaching the calcined residue, as was mentioned earlier. The solar fire can be increased in the salts by setting them outside at night to deliquesce. That word. I was able to say it the other 2 times. Out in deliquescence. Balls. The solar fire can be increased in the salts by setting them outside at night to deliquesce. Maybe that's how you say it. Leave the salts to dry in the sun. In this way, as they crystallize, they absorb and trap more of the sun's energy. Take the salts inside and grind them fine. Then place them into a Pyrex dish. Place the dish into an oven at a temperature of 200 to 300 degrees Celsius. This roasting of the salts causes their pores to open, as the old artists would say. Take the still warm salts out of the oven and place them in a warm mortar. Grind the salts fine. Pour the salts into a vial and in an even layer. Pour enough of the essential oil layer over the salts so that they are just saturated. Seal the vial and place it in an incubator. Anincubator. In an incubator at 40 degrees Celsius. There the salts should remain undisturbed for a week. On the appropriate day of the following week, check the salts. If they have absorbed all of the oil, add some more. When the same amount of oil remains on top of your salts as you put in a week before, the salts have taken up all they can hold. Begin adding your alcohol in the same manner as you did the oil. Keep the process up until no more alcohol will go into the salts. When this is done, your stone is finished to the 1st degree. You can increase the virtue of your stone by grinding it and subjecting it to a gentle distillation and calcination of the residue. Grind the salts again and return the distillate to them with additions of fresh oil and alcohol as needed. You can repeat this process several times, and in the end, you will have a powerful medicine. You can mature your stone by allowing it to digest in the heat of the incubator for 6 months to a year. If it appears to dry out, continue adding fresh oil and alcohol in equal amounts to keep it moist. If done properly, the matter will congeal to a hardened stone which will work to separate the essentials from the macerating herb simply by immersing it in the herb/water mixture. The herb's salt, sulfur, and mercury will gather together as a layer floating on the water surface, from which it is collected for use without any further preparation. The stone is recovered unharmed for further use. This use of the stone is not nearly as efficient as a circulatum, which forms our last topic of study. If not fully matured, the stone will fall apart upon immersion in water. It can be very disheartening to see months of work dissolve before your eyes. Many operators don't attempt this experiment and utilize the stone only as a powerful medicine. In using the stone medicinally, a small amount is taken in a little water or wine. The effects are related to the stone's planetary ruler and can open doors of perception to its particular sphere, providing lasting insights to the various realms we have been discussing. The effect on the general health can be astonishing and quite overpowering. This is the reason that preliminary purification of the artist using preparations such as the 7 basics is highly recommended. Circulatum minus. The so-called circulatum is essentially a liquid version of the plant stone, which acts as a powerful menstruum or solvent in the extraction of plants. The most concise description of its preparation comes to us from a small book first published in 1690 by Baron Urbigerus, by Baron Urbigerus, entitled Circulatum minus Urbigeranum. As with the vegetable stone, preparation of the circulatum depends on the marriage of the 3 essentials derived from the plant and purified prior to their recombination. In practice, a fairly large amount of salt and salt of sulfur are required, since the final volume of circulatum will depend on their combined volume. The combined salts are fully saturated with the essential oil and digested at 40 degrees Celsius for several weeks. Additional oil may be required during the digestion, and the whole should be stirred often until it becomes of a thick honey-like consistency. Unlike the vegetable stone, the circulatum uses an excess of the volatile components. That is to say, the amount of volatiles is always greater than the fixed salts. Urbigerus recommends addition of bituminous sulfur, bituminous sulfur, to this mixture in order to aid volatilization of the salts, which is the key to this preparation. This bituminous sulfur. This bituminous sulfur is derived from the resin of the particular plant, or that derived from another plant in which it is more plentiful. Urbigerus recommends Copavian balsam, which is capital Copaivian, space capital Balsam, Copavian balsam, but other sources include pine, cedar, yew, and Canadian balsam. Add just enough to thicken the matter and solubilize. Solubilize the salts. Solublize. Add just enough to thicken the matter and solubilize the salts to the honey-like consistency. Soluble? Solubilize? Let's look it up. These last sentences, man, are getting me. Oh, I have to press up here.
Solubilize.
Solubilize. Make a substance soluble or more soluble. Solubilize. Okay, cool. Okay, so solubilize. Add just enough to thicken the matter and solubilize the salts to the honey-like consistency. The organic acids present in the resin assist in volatilizing the salts so that they will distill over united. They will distill over united with the alcohol later. After the period of digestion, add rectified alcohol at 6 to 8 times the volume of your matter. Seal and let digest at 40 degrees Celsius for another 2 weeks to a month. Now the flask is attached to a distillation train and gently distilled down to the honey-like consistency again. Be careful not to push the fire too high and drive the sulfur over, or burn the matter. Take all of the clear distillate and pour it back over the matter in the flask. Seal and digest again for 2 weeks. After this, distill again. This process is called circulation, and the cycle must be repeated 7 to 12 times to complete the preparation. The final distillate should be clear and have a sharp, penetrating odor, quite unlike the original alcohol. This is now the circulatum. In use, the circulatum is generally poured over a fresh, finely shredded plant and shaken. The liquid may become milky looking depending on the quantity and qualities of the plant's oils. The extracted plant residue will fall to the bottom, and the milky emulsion will coalesce into drops of oily liquid that rise to the surface. This oily liquid contains the essentials of the plant, including its salts. So carefully collect it and save for use. The circulatum is recovered from the residue and gently distilled for use in other extractions. Its power is said to increase the more it is used. Wow! I only barely grasped what I just read. 33 minutes and 6 seconds. And page 69. I intended to read this chapter. Three. Hmm. 9:33. Let's save chapter 7 for tomorrow, the 7th. So I don't know if I'm going to read any more of that Dolores Cannon book tonight or not. I might, but I might just not. I did a lot today. So dang, thanks for being here with me. What juicy info. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I love yous. I will see you next time. And until then, mwah, take care of yourselves. Thank you.